Hi, I'm Terry Swack, and one of the founding company members of the DaS Symposium. So for those of you that know me, bear with me for a moment. For those of you who don't, just a little background on Sustainable Minds. We were the first company to introduce a cloud-based, simplified eco-design and LCA software solution for the product manufacturing industry back in 2010. And we introduced kind of a brazen idea, which is that there is no such thing as a green product, that green is a relative value. Something can only be greener than something else. We also understood that life cycle assessment was the undisputed scientific method of measuring the relative greenness of products and systems, except that it's incredibly technical, scientific, and not something that most design engineers or ultimately product innovation or engineering guys really need to know about. They just needed to know what it means and how to use it to make decisions about helping to make greener products. So we created a simplified system, deployed it in the cloud, and today, in about 5 years, Sustainable Minds has been adopted in industry and education in over 750 locations in 75 countries around the world, which is, to me, shocking because we are a small company and we have a very small marketing budget. But what this adoption shows is that and I'm really happy to follow Bill, there's an enormous desire, an appetite to integrate life cycle thinking and knowledge into not only industry, but in education. And our biggest growth sector, and keep in mind, we are a B2B software company, our biggest growth sector actually is education. And every type of curriculum, MBA programs, undergraduate business programs, because they're teaching new business models, new business thinking, every kind of engineering, mechanical, civil, environmental, industrial design, and now architecture. Now, the reason that Sustainable Minds has been adopted and continues to be adopted pretty readily is that our commitment to software design and development is to make complex systems and ideas understandable, to make software that's easy to use. Credibility is fundamental. It has to be as good as the high-end stuff and deliver incredible results, and it has to be affordably priced. If you're going to ask people to do new things and learn new stuff and change the way they make products, all of these attributes need to be present. So we've spent the last 5 years working with manufacturers and students and educators, helping them think about what it means to design greener products and how to do it. And there's certainly plenty of drivers in the industry. When we introduced Sustainable Minds 5 years ago, and even the research that we did for the couple of years before that, there weren't really a lot of manufacturers who were that interested or felt that there were significant drivers or customer demand for greener products. But now, fast forward the 5 to 7 years, things have changed pretty substantively, and not only do manufacturers now want to design greener products, they need to, simply to compete in the marketplace. And this point right here, the point about brand, when everything is equal, price, performance, relative greenness, people make decisions based on brand. So not only do manufacturers need and want to design greener products, they need and want to market greener products. But what I'm going to show you in the rest of the talk is that the activity of designing and the activity of marketing are absolutely an integrated activity. And to have software and applications and systems being separate segments the ability for manufacturers to be successful at bringing new, greener products to market. So what's happened, pretty much everyone else has caught on that life cycle assessment is the globally recognized scientific method to measure green, and now we're seeing all kinds of organizations, industry consortia, testing and certification companies, government agencies, creating standards, metrics, methods, and pushing them out to the industry. But anybody who knows anything about life cycle assessment knows that there are massive systemic challenges, meaning it's expensive, not a lot of people know how to do it, dramatic shortage of data, no standardized, reliable distribution. Manufacturers who have actually invested in life cycle assessment, and largely for the purpose of understanding their own manufacturing and their own life cycle impacts to try to make better decisions about the way they make products, have not really been good at leveraging that same LCA investment for marketing purposes. And finally, kind of referencing back to all of these new and existing organizations, there is no distribution for the metrics, guidelines, standards, templates that ultimately manufacturers are going to need if they're going to make products, if they're going to design products ultimately to meet the specifications and the requirements of the industry. And really, when you look at what the big system is of product manufacturing, and we like to use the word value chain rather than supply chain, but in today's world of sustainable value chain, the customer is always king, and everybody on the left side of the guy who makes the finished product ultimately has to be accountable to the guy who makes the finished product. But the challenge is on the guy who makes the finished product to turn around and actually get that data from tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers, because frankly, it's really hard. They're not sure they care, but these guys on the front line have to do it to bring products to market. So now it's all about engaging your suppliers and helping you, finished product manufacturer, be successful in making your product. So what it means now is that every manufacturer across the value chain needs to be able to both design and market with credibility, and all of that clearly requires new knowledge, processes, and tools. So, lead is the big elephant in the room, and I'm really glad Jerry went ahead of me. But lead version 4 has really created the tipping point in the demand for life cycle assessment in the building products industry. So lead version 4, which goes into effect in June 2015, meaning there will be no possibility for building owners to backwards certify to any previous version. Lead version 4 is all about product transparency, that building product manufacturers must disclose and report in a very specific way to its customers, specifiers of products, architects, builders, and contractors, about the material ingredients in their products. And there's 2 required reporting formats written into the LEED guidelines: environmental product declarations, that's an EPD, and health product declarations, that's what an HPD is. So they brought in, the LEED folks brought in a team of industry experts, of LEED, of life cycle assessment industry experts. And full disclosure, our LCA technical expert from Sustainable Minds was one of those authors. So that's cool, we kind of had an inside guy. But essentially, they wrote in a wholesale adoption of the current technical standards for disclosure and how life cycle assessment needs to be done to enable reporting. And so we had technical people creating technical standards to create deliverables that non-technical people would use. That never happens, right? So, but okay, so nobody thought anything of it. And I just wanted to point out that this is not a small industry, right? And the demand for products that need to meet these guidelines, coincidentally, is kind of peaking kind of at the same time that this particular standard is going into effect. So they introduced LEED version 4 at Greenbuild in November of 2012, and this is a good opportunity for me to introduce you to Bill Strang, back up there, President of North American Operations. And Bill and Toto have been a Sustainable Minds customer for a number of years, using our software to help them design greener toilets and the other products that they make. Bill loves talking about toilets. You're going to hear all about that from him. So Bill came back from Greenbuild all excited. He said, "Terry, we're going to need EPDs." And I said, "Bill, there is no PCR for toilets, and therefore you're either going to have to spend a ton of time and money to sit in a room with your competitors to decide how you're all going to go off and do your life cycle assessment so you can produce environmental product declarations, or we can figure out something else." So he said, well, let's figure out the something else. I said, okay. So he had us come down and actually give a tutorial to about 40 people in his company. Marketing people, engineering people, procurement people. He wanted everybody to understand why this was going to be important and why they were going to be investing heavily in figuring out how they were going to take what they do internally already today and make it public, and to help sell more toilets and more greener plumbing fixtures. So we put together a tutorial. I'll show you a couple of the slides we put together. I got this graphic off of the NSF sustainability website. NSF is one of these old product testing and certification companies. They do PCR and EPD certification. So again, the alphabet soup is product category rule is PCR, life cycle assessment, you already know, environmental product declaration, EPD. And so how those things work together is the product category rule is a standard that's created by a group of competitors that all agree, here's how we're going to measure our products, so they can all go off and do the life cycle assessments the same way, and then produce environmental product declarations according to the same standards as specified in the product category rule, and then all of it needs to be certified. So we broke it down for the folks and said, look, product category rules, there aren't that many, they're really expensive, you have to work with your competitors, nobody knows if one even exists, so how do you know if you need to make one? And you know, there's a bunch of program operators around the world who don't really talk to each other. An environmental product declaration requires 4 categories of information. The LCA results, which by the way have to be independently verified, and then the whole document gets certified. Whatever else you need to tell about difference in variations of performance, the way you manufacture your products, any other environmental performance data that's not LCA based, and then this last piece, which I love, this is optional. Anything else you want to say about your product. So any product marketing or any features and benefits, that's optional. The only thing that goes required in an EPD is the environmental information. So a little backstory on me, I was originally a graphic designer, and years ago I designed lots of brochures for schools, software companies, whatever. And I just said to myself, like, what is so unique about an environmental product declaration? It's just another damn brochure. So how many brochures must a manufacturer create for every product that they have? And how many brochures must an architect or a builder or contractor look at to make a decision about a product? That makes no sense whatsoever. Everything should be in one place, in one brochure, and it should be short. And the fact is that even industry that has adopted the PCR EPD process and the office. Okay. Is there a pointer in this? No. Anyway, even the folks who have heavily invested at the industry level in doing PCRs and EPDs feel feel compelled, here we go, feel compelled to disclaim that even after going through this really expensive, really intensive process, you still shouldn't trust the reports to be able to compare one competitor's product relative to another. Now that to me is just, you know, why? So we did a pretty intensive round of research. We collected a ton of EPDs. We asked Bill which ones he liked. We looked at ones from Europe, ones from different product categories. We looked at ones that were long, short, ones that weren't EPDs, but manufacturers were using to report their product information. And we boiled it down to 5 to do kind of an analysis of what we found. And I'm just going to jump to the research findings. I'm not going to show you. Anybody who wants to see, I'll show you a summary of the research at lunch. But not surprisingly, what we found were most EPDs were too long. If they were too short, they weren't EPDs. They were too technical. They had too much detail in the LCA results. There's too much other stuff, not enough marketing info, and absolutely no way to compare. And so it begs the question, how does an architect, builder, or contractor use these to make a purchase decision? But now remember, in LEED version 4, a manufacturer is required to create one of these things. And further, they've tossed in a new kind of report, a health product declaration. And you're going to hear from Mark later this afternoon. This is one of his health product declarations. He's going to talk to you about the fun he had in creating that. But both EPDs and now HPDs, you can get points for LEED, in LEED, for this type of disclosure. And frankly, as Paul said, it is important for manufacturers to be looking at what they put in their products, and it is important to be able to disclose, but it has to be in a way that the people who are making these determinations can actually consume that information and make a decision. Here's the real big question, and I've heard this plenty from architects and other specifiers that we've talked to. They're really afraid to start to plan to certify to LEED v4 because they don't really see how the building product industry is going to be ready. There aren't going to be enough products for them to choose from to specify to actually get the points they want in a LEED v4 building. They're asking, can BPMs get ready fast enough? And so when you do the math, literally, you have to go through that whole process. It's going to take you about that much time. And by the way, it's going to be about $100,000 to $150,000. The time keeps ticking till the LEED v4 start date. It doesn't take a genius to say, there's got to be an alternative. And by the way, you got to make it easy to get started. What is the emperor's new clothes is that today's current ISO PCR EPD process was not created in contemplation of today's demand for transparency. But you can pose the question, can there be new ways of doing things with the existing rules to maintain that credibility and whatnot? And so our answer is yes. We're going to keep the science, re-engineer the process, and the market will decide what's important. So we are expanding and have expanded our platform to not only help manufacturers make better design decisions, but to help their customers make better marketing decisions and ultimately make better purchase decisions, because we're going to produce reports that live in the cloud, they're data-driven, data's not encoded in a PDF, and they're understandable, and people will be able to make comparative purchase decisions, and they're integrated with our software. So now manufacturers can not only design better, they'll be able to market better, and it's an iterative cycle. They can start with us as a market better customer, and then we give them software with their data in it as part of that marketing deliverable. Next month, we're doing the big launch of the whole program. We did the introduction at Greenbuild. We have created an alternative to the PCR EPD process with equivalent verification and credibility. We introduced the transparency report deliverable at Greenbuild with Toto and NSF, one of the most trusted testing and certification companies. They are now our preferred testing and certification partner. I got to tell you that it was an enormously disruptive introduction. That's the press release Bill put out, and literally every other plumbing manufacturer there just went ballistic. Like, oh my God, how did this happen? They were in a daze, kind of walking around to the NSF booth, walking over to Bill's booth, walking over to our booth. What happened? So this solution is really for anyone who makes products. We're kind of doing an end run a little bit about the standard process. Now they can leverage their LCA investments. It's 3 pages. It includes all of the content required in an EPD, but actually now the manufacturer can tell stories about what they're really doing to make their product greener. And we're making the LCA results understandable. We've integrated our single-figure scores in the context of the full characterized results, which are required in an EPD, but the single-figure scores help people understand what's happening in each life cycle stage. We're integrating the HPD as an alternative, as an additional tab that can be added. Same thing, make it really easy. An architect or a specifier wants these things, these 4 questions answered. Simply, are there hazardous ingredients? How bad are they? What are the risks? What's the company doing about it? So now that's part of the transparency report. And like I said, the deliverable of a transparency report is they get software with their data in a private data set so they can continue to design better. And here's the big picture. We're building a manufacturer showroom in the cloud, organizing brands by where they sit in the value chain. Again, because it's in the cloud and it's data-driven, the data about products can stream to applications like Revit for whole building modeling, to My Green Payback to do ROI calculations, because Revit and Paul, or Autodesk and Green Minds, can't do what they're promising without Bill doing what he needs to do and what every other manufacturer needs to do, is do their LCAs, do their HPDs, produce results that aren't encoded in PDFs but live in the cloud. Data can be streamed. And by the way, we previewed this with that other rating system, Green Globes. Jerry back there. Jerry, this is great. You meet the highest criteria in Green Globes. We're writing you into our standard. Make it easy, make it simple. That works. So to wrap up, because that's why Brad's standing there, today, because it's written into LEED, manufacturers are producing EPDs and HPDs so that specifiers can check the box. They're not reading them. You know, they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce these reports because they're required to, but they're not understandable. Nobody's reading them. You can't use them to make a decision. So and in particular, the presence of an EPD or an HPD does not mean that that product has been improved or is greener in any way. Many manufacturers are just benchmarking what they have today and putting it out there so they can get the purchase decision, check the box. But soon that box checking isn't going to satisfy the real demand. People are going to need real information that's understandable to them, that's useful and consistent and comparable, so that they actually can make better decisions and reward the manufacturers who actually are making greener products and are able to report and market those stories in a better way. I'm going to stand here in front of you today because we've already told this to the USGBC, but we do intend to become the national standard for environmental reporting. We think it'll take about 2 years. And in the end, we can't do it by ourselves either. You think about that sustainable value chain. Every manufacturer has to rely on every software provider to manage their data and hope that it's going to interoperate with the systems that manufacturers are going to need to design and market better. So my point at the beginning, designing and marketing greener is an integrated process. The tools and systems have to enable manufacturers do that, and they have to be able to present what they're doing today and to continuously improve and ultimately present that information.